Have you ever found something really cool at a flea market and had no idea what to call it? Is it an antique? Is it vintage? Or is it retro? Well, by the end of this, you're going to be a total pro at telling them apart. Okay, so let's dive right in. Picture this. You find an amazing old chair, maybe a cool looking radio, or even a piece of clothing. It's not brand new, but what's that right word for it? These terms get tossed around all the time, and honestly, most people use them interchangeably. And yeah, let's be real. Chances are you've probably mixed them up before yourself. I know I have. But don't worry. By the end of this, you'll be able to spot the differences with total confidence. We're going to get this cleared up once and for all. First up, let's talk about the most straightforward category of them all, the antique. This one has a very clear, super strict rule that separates it from the rest of the pack. When you think antique, there's one number that you have to remember, 100, and that's for 100 years. It's kind of like the gatekeeper of the world of antiques. It's a really hard and fast rule, so according to all the official customs and trade rules, an item has to be at least a century old to earn the title of antique. So if it were the year 2026, which it is, an object must have been made in 1926 or earlier to qualify. It's really just simple math. It's not a matter of style at all. So, we're talking about things like a gramophone from the 1910s, or some really ornate Victorian furniture, or even something like a book from the 20s, or a hairbrush, all made before that 100-year cutoff. The main takeaway here is if it's not a century old, it might be cool, it might be really old, but it's not an antique, at least not yet. All right, let's move on to our next category, which is where things start to get a little more personal. Welcome to the world of vintage. I like to call vintage the nostalgia zone, and this timeline here lays it out for us all perfectly. You see that middle section? That's our vintage zone. Generally, this covers items that are somewhat between 20 and 99 years old. It's really the sweet spot, right between truly antique and just, something secondhand. So a vintage piece isn't just old, it's an authentic survivor from a specific bygone era. And the key is it has to be representative of that time that it was made. It's not just an old chair, it has to be a chair that absolutely screams the 1960s or something like that. That authenticity is everything, and this is exactly why vintage items are so powerful. They tap directly into a sense of nostalgia, that warm, kind of bittersweet feeling of longing for the past. Vintage items are the real deal, and the authenticity connects us to a time that we, or maybe our parents, remember really fondly. Just think of a classic Eames chair or an original Game Boy from the 1990s. How about a record player from the 60s? Or even those crazy Pez dispensers from the 50s or things like that. Those are all perfect examples of vintage. They're actually artifacts from the past, and that just kind of transports us back in time. Really amazing. Okay, so let's get ready for a little bit of a plot twist here. This next part is where most people get tripped up. We are going to talk about retro. And let me tell you, it is a totally different beast than the others. I need you to pay close attention to this slide because this is the single most important takeaway of this whole thing. Retro has nothing to do with how old something is. It is not the date on a calendar, it is a style, an aesthetic, a look that is imitating the past. So let's break it down side by side. Vintage is genuinely old. Retro looks old. Vintage is an authentic original. Retro is a modern copy. And while vintage is fueled by that warm, sentimental nostalgia, retro is often what we call an unsentimental nostalgia. It's more about appreciating the old look, sometimes with a little bit of irony too. Think of a brand new Smeg brand toaster that's designed to look like it's straight out of the 50s, or a modern instant camera that mimics the look of an old Polaroid Instamatic. These things are new. They're fresh off the factory line, but they are consciously borrowing a style from the past. That is retro. So this leads to a pretty great question, right? If all these retro items are brand new, how does a particular old style just suddenly become popular again? Like, what's the mechanism for making that happen? Well, it usually happens in two steps. First, you have what's called a revival. This is when a past style, like 70s fonts or 80s fashions, is discovered and becomes a trend again. Then you get retro objects as a result of that trend. Those are the new products that are created to capitalize. So here's a super simple way to remember that. Revival is the trend. Retro is the object. Okay, we have one final term to add to our guide. And this one basically breaks all the rules about age that we just established. Let's talk about the word classic. You see, a classic isn't defined by when it's made. It's more like a stamp of approval, a recognition of timeless quality and significance. It's an item that was so well designed or so influential that it set a standard and has endured the test of time. And this shows that classic label can actually overlap with our other categories. For example, a 1960s Mustang is both vintage and a classic. An ancient Greek statue is both antique and a classic. A classic is defined by its enduring relevance, and not necessarily by its age. All right, we've covered a lot of ground here, so let's bring it all together in one simple cheat sheet. If you're taking notes, trust me, this is the slide you're going to want to screenshot. Here it is. Antique, 100 years or older. Vintage, 20 to 99 years old and authentic to its era. Retro, brand new, but in an old style. Revival, that's the trend that inspires the creation of retro objects. And classic, timeless quality, any age. Simple enough, right? So why does any of this even matter? Well, because language is powerful. And as designers who understand these terms, they're going to make you smarter and more discerning. It also helps you tell better stories about the kind of retro work you might be making, helping them connect them to history in a way that's more accurate and honestly a lot more meaningful. So now that you're armed with all this knowledge, I'll leave you with just this one question. How do these different eras show up in your own life? Are you drawn to the historic weight of antiques, the sentimental pull of vintage, or the playful imitation of retro? Think about it and let me know sometime. Thanks so much for tuning in.